Welcome to the Disgruntled PM podcast, your weekly therapy session for the chaotic world of project management, transforming daily frustrations into real action. Welcome, everybody. I'm Trevor, the Disgruntled PM. And before we get started, I want to take a moment and tell the audience thank you for all the support, all the downloads, all the listens, all the feedback. I really do appreciate the fact that I have such an engaged audience that wants to provide their feedback to me. So, with that, let's get started. Today, we're stepping into the ring for the biggest grudge match in project management history. In one corner, weighing in with decades of corporate baggage, 500-page requirements document, and the unwavering belief that planning can solve all problems, we have the reigning, defending champion of the way we've always done it, Waterfall. And in the other corner, the challenger, wearing a hoodie, fueled by sticky notes and promising speed, flexibility, and a whole new vocabulary of words like scrum, sprint, and ceremony, we have Agile. Today isn't just a talk about theory. This is the battle for your sanity. We're going to break down what each of these methodologies really is, where they shine, where they fail spectacularly, and how to know which one you should choose when fighting your battles in project management. Let's start with the granddaddy of them all, Waterfall. The name says it all. It's a linear, sequential process that flows in one direction, downhill. You typically must complete one phase entirely before you even think about starting the next one. It's like a relay race where you have to finish your entire leg of the race, hand off the baton, and then you're forbidden from ever looking to help the next runner, even if they've tripped and fallen flat on their face. The mantra is plan the work the plan. It's all about massive upfront planning. The core belief, the corporate fantasy, is that if you just document every single requirement, every design choice, and every possible outcome at the beginning, the rest of the project will be a smooth, predictable march to victory. Now let's take a look at this in reality. It's the project management equivalent of writing a step-by-step instruction manual for a road trip from New York to LA, before you've checked the weather, the traffic, or whether your car actually has a working engine. You spend 6 months creating the perfect laminated 3-ring binder plan, only to find out on day one that the drive on day one of the drive that a sinkhole has opened up in Ohio and your co-pilot has decided they'd rather go to Miami. Let me tell you the story about the beauty of Waterfall. I was on a project to develop a new software system. The requirements phase took 4 months. Nope, I'm not exaggerating. I held workshops with every department. We had the lead developer, multiple other developers, the head of finance, a mid-level manager, and an intern from marketing who just kept suggesting we make the interface go viral. We documented everything. We created a requirements document so thick you could beat the stingiest of stakeholders into submission with it. It had everything. We got sign-off from every VP, every director, and in a few cases, their cats too. It was a masterpiece of documentation, a testament to my ability to herd cats into a single coherent document. Then we went into the development black box for several months. The team was coding away, and I was dutifully reporting in progress on all my status reports. Green on all categories across the board. This is all corporate speak for, I have no idea what the team is doing, but I'm hoping they build something great. When we finally emerged, blinking in the sunlight, we demoed the finished product. The client, the sponsor, and the primary stakeholder who signed the document in what I can only assume is his own blood, took one look at it and said, "This is great. This is exactly what we asked for. But 5 new federal regulations passed 3 months ago that makes half of these features illegal. Didn't you know about this?" No one had told the project team. Why? Because we were in the implementation phase and the requirements phase was officially over, locked, and stored in a secure vault guarded by a dragon. That's a good example of Waterfall in a nutshell. A perfect execution of a potentially outdated plan. Now, this is an extreme example, but it happens every day in Waterfall projects. The phases are simple and fairly rigid. Requirements. This is where you capture what everyone thinks they want at a single point in time. Design, where architects draw the perfect blueprint for a world that no longer exists based on the requirements you thought you needed. Implementation, the long, quiet darkness where your developers go into the cave and you just hope they haven't started a cult. Testing, this is the reckoning. This is where the QA team, who you haven't spoken to in months, gets the software and gleefully reports that it doesn't meet any of the requirements you wrote a year ago. This is where the finger pointing begins. Deployment, the Big Bang launch, a moment of maximum terror where you release everything at once and hope the whole system doesn't collapse on impact. It's structured, it's methodical, and it's mostly inflexible by design. And sometimes, just sometimes, that's what you need. But we'll get to that later. Now, after decades of projects failing spectacularly, like this software system, a group of very smart people got together and said, what if we stopped pretending we could predict the future? And from that, the revolutionary idea Agile was born. Agile isn't one single method. It's a mindset. It's a philosophy that values responding to change over following a plan. Instead of one giant Big Bang launch at the end, Agile works in small, iterative cycles called sprints. A sprint is typically 2 weeks long. At the beginning of the sprint, the team pulls a small chunk of work from a prioritized list called a backlog and commits to getting it done. At the end of the 2 weeks, you have a small, but hopefully functional piece of the product that you can show stakeholders. Now, let's take a look at this in reality. If Waterfall is a planned 3-course meal, Agile is a tapas restaurant. You're not waiting for one giant meal. You're getting small plates delivered to your table every 5 minutes. Some you'll love, some you'll hate, but you can change your order as you go. The catch? It requires constant communication. Meetings, such as daily stand-ups, sprint planning meetings, sprint review meetings, sprint retrospective meetings. Agile is filled with meetings, or as they like to call them, ceremonies, to make them sound more important. Let's walk through an example of an Agile project. It feels amazing at first. You're moving fast, building things, getting instant feedback. But one day your product owner, the person whose job it is to prioritize the work, is getting completely overwhelmed. They become the good idea fairy in the flesh. Every day they come to your stand-up meeting, which is supposed to be a 15-minute sync-up, and then they launch into a 30-minute monologue about a new game-changing priority they thought of in the shower that morning. They force you to change the 2-week sprint backlog so many times it looks like my toddler's Etch-a-Sketch. The team has whiplash. They become incredibly agile in that the team is constantly moving, but they weren't actually finishing anything. The team is just starting 100 different things. One of the developers started referring to retrospectives as the meeting where you reflect. One of the developers can start referring to the retrospectives as the meeting where you reflect on what went well and what didn't, as a bi-weekly group therapy session where everyone agrees to communicate better and then immediately stop communicating for the next 2 weeks. That's the dark side of Agile. Flexibility without discipline is just chaos. You're not on a planned road trip anymore. You're just driving around in circles in a parking lot, but you're doing it very, very fast. Agile promises speed and flexibility, but it demands intense discipline. A dedicated team and stakeholders who are willing to understand their roles and be involved at the appropriate times, not just at the beginning and the end. Now it's time for the cage match. Waterfall versus Agile head-to-head. So, which is better? The classic frustrating PM response is, it depends. Let's take a look at the tape. On planning, Waterfall plans everything up front. It's a massive, detailed effort to map the entire universe before you take a single step. Agile plans iteratively. You have a high-level vision, but you only plan the details for the next 2 weeks. Handling change. Waterfall sees change as its enemy. It must be controlled through a rigid, bureaucratic change request process typically designed to make people give up and go away. Agile sees change as the reality. It's expected and welcomed, at least in theory. Customer involvement. In Waterfall, the customer is typically heavily involved at the very beginning and very end. In between, they mostly get a status report. In Agile, the customer, or representative, is involved constantly. They are part of the team, giving feedback on every sprint. Documentation. Waterfall lives and breathes documentation. If it isn't written down, it doesn't exist. This is great for audits and terrible for trees. Agile values working software over comprehensive documentation. The documentation is often done just enough. The PM's role. In Waterfall, the PM is the commander and controller, the keeper of the master plan. In Agile, the PM, typically Scrum Master, is more of a facilitator and servant leader focused on removing roadblocks from the team. Now, let's discuss the mistake I've seen a lot of companies make trying to have it both ways. They say that they're doing Agile, but they still demand a fixed scope, fixed budget, and fixed deadline that were all decided a year in advance. That's not Agile. That's not Waterfall. That's just Waterfall with more meetings and no documentation. That's a Franken method I like to refer to as Wagile, and it can be the worst of both worlds. It's like being told you're going to a tapas restaurant, but you have to order all your plates for the entire night before you've even tasted the first one. It makes no sense. So who wins this cage match? Nobody. And everybody. These aren't religions. Well, Agile can be to some people, but they're mostly tools in your toolbox. The mark of a great project manager isn't being an Agile PM or a Waterfall PM. It's about being a PM that can look at a project, understand its unique challenges, and choose the right tool for the job. Here's the simplest way to think about it. Building a house is a waterfall project. You need the blueprint before you pour the foundation. You need the foundation before you put up the walls. The requirements are fixed and known typically. The cost of changing your mind halfway through, I want the cost of changing your mind halfway through with something like, I think the kitchen on the second, the cost of changing your mind midway through with something like, I think I'd like the kitchen on the second floor now is astronomical. The process is linear and predictable by necessity. You want the dinosaur for this job. Its rigidity is a feature, not a bug. Now, developing a new mobile app is an Agile project. You have an idea, but you really don't know what users will want. The market could shift tomorrow. A competitor could release a new feature. You need to release a basic version, get user feedback, and adapt. The cost of changing your mind is low, and the value of flexibility is high. This is a job for the unicorn. The real disgruntlement in project management doesn't come from using Waterfall or Agile. It comes from being forced to use the wrong one for the situation you're in. It's using a hammer to turn a screw. So my challenge to my audience is this. Stop thinking in terms of good and bad. Start thinking in terms of fit. Look at your current project. Is it more like building a house or developing a mobile app? Does it value predictability and flexibility? Are your requirements set in stone, or are they a vague wish list? The answer will tell you everything you need to know about which methodology or which combination of principles is going to make your life easier or at least a little less painful. So, with that, I'll say like and subscribe, follow on YouTube, follow on LinkedIn. I really cannot say enough how much I appreciate all of the support, all the comments, all the feedback, all the messages about the show. This is truly a passion of mine and something I'm learning to enjoy doing. So, may all your deliverables be on time, your budget's in the black, and your scope not creeping. I'm still Trevor, and I'm still the disgruntled PM.